every time we watch one of these, I immediately recall some dark moments that I've seen on television.
Every time I watch one of these, I get kind of in a weird mood afterwards, too.
Yeah, it's one of those that doesn't really, like... It puts you in a very weird state of mind. And honestly, television has just come such a long way. And now to the point where television is almost dead. Television's basically almost dead now, and everything is streaming services and online services and live TV services. Which...
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. What used to be the universal format for everyone's entertainment is now almost dead.
Yeah.
Me, who stopped watching TV back in, 2005. Oh, man, that's so weird.
Me, who stopped watching... me, who literally told the cable company, I don't want that, I just want internet. Back in, I think it was 2010. Mm-hmm. 2010 was when I basically cut cable out of my life and just went with the internet instead.
So basically, after Cartoon Network put out a new generation of shows and stopped rerunning Ed, Edd and Eddy and
with Magoozy.
Yeah, Dexter's Lab, Powerpuff Girls, Toonami was basically getting dismantled. Adult Swim was full of a bunch of stuff that I was just this is some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I just started playing video games and watching movies all the time instead of watching TV anymore.
You ever seen this?
Yeah.
Toonami Aftermath, ladies and gentlemen. The place where you can go to relive all of your nostalgia.
Hell yeah.
But the darkest moments in TV history, there's several that scared me. And you mentioned Toonami. Toonami had The Intruder, where the host of the friggin' show got killed.
That was dope.
Yes.
That whole arc where you were actually waiting in between episodes of anime to see what was happening with the ship and stuff.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, there was this little 3D animated thing that was going on. Toonami was a block of shows that this guy named Tom was broadcasting from his ship called the Absolution. And while he was broadcasting
he was voiced by the greatest voice actor.
Well, actually, no. Originally, he was voiced. He was voiced by Sonny Strait, and it wasn't until Tom, but whenever they did The Intruder, Tom had to go and fight this thing. It was basically a gigantic amorphous blob that just continually started taking over the ship, and Tom went down there to fight it, and Tom did everything he could to try and fight it, but eventually nothing that he was doing was affecting it, so he ran back to the elevator, and he was trying to hit the button to go up, and you're like, okay, the elevator's going to close, Tom's going to get away, and he's going to figure something else out. No. The thing breaks through the elevator and eats him and kills him.
Like a real person?
No, it was it was a robot.
Yeah. Oh.
He was a robot
He's
named
animated.
Tom.
Oh,
okay. It was a 3D animated thing.
Okay.
He broke it.
Sorry.
The thing broke in and killed him. And then eventually, the computer, Sarah, was just okay, activating Tom 2. Tom version 2.0 was the one that a lot of kids grew up with because he was the longest serving host. But she presses a button and a new Tom, robot comes out. He's taller and he looks much more cool. But anyway, they eventually blow up a segment of the ship and detach the part of the ship that the intruder is attached onto, and that's how they escape from it. It was so good.
Did they switch to Steve Bloom for Tom 2.0,
yes.
Or did they switch before that?
Sonny Strait voiced Tom 1, Tom 2, 3, and 4, all Steve Bloom.
Okay.
So, yeah. Needless to say, when we were kids, we had some pretty cool stuff happening. And, anyway, I guess...
imagine having an engaging plot for something that was just the in-between parts of the shows.
I know, right?
That already had engaging plots that were introducing you to anime, basically.
Yes. Oh. God, I missed it. I miss being a kid.
That was some dope television. I think that's the reason I quit watching television, is because once that kind of stuff just stopped happening, I was like, I've seen the peak of television.
Dude, I remember running home from school, running home after getting off the bus and dropping me off at the end of the dirt road, and I rushed home as fast as I could to catch as much Toonami as I could.
I'm pretty sure I had to make a deal with my mom on how homework was scheduled out, so I was allowed to watch Toonami until that was done.
I asked my mom that too. I was like after 6 o'clock, I'll do all my homework. I promise. Because after 6 o'clock, Toonami went off the air, and that was that. Gosh. But then they did the midnight run with Gundam Wing Uncut, and they showed blood and everything. It's like, yes. Anyway, darkest moments of TV history. Let's check them out.
No habíamos querido decir nada antes de chequear bien lo que estaba sucediendo porque compromete a personajes.
September 3rd, 2011. The Chilean news station TVN is hosting a live game show called KA7, or 7th Street, in which young adults compete in a series of challenges to avoid being eliminated, with the winner going on to eventually earn a cash prize. In Chile, the show was considered a success during its run, though it was never anything too out of the ordinary, especially as far as game shows go, and many familiar with it would probably be surprised to see it discussed in a video like this, as its family-friendly setup made it the last place you would ever expect to encounter a dark TV moment. And for most of its run, this was true, except for that fateful September day.
I thought it was the TV footage that looked that bad. It was the YouTube clone.
Yeah.
Nos acaba de llegar una información muy difícil de entregar. No habíamos querido decir nada antes de chequear bien lo que estaba sucediendo porque compromete a personajes.
What happened?
As the participants were engaging in a heated competition, the host, Jean-Philippe, unexpectedly halts the program in the middle of a game with breaking news that a terrible, terrible accident had occurred, though not one on the show, but instead within the network itself. That morning, a team of workers from the TVN station, including famed presenters Felipe Camaroga and Roberto Bruce, along with numerous staff, had boarded a military aircraft to document the recovery efforts after the 2010 earthquake which had ravaged the country, with the plane heading for the island of Robinson Crusoe, a destination that they would sadly never reach, as Jean-Philippe would interrupt KA7 to share the devastating news that the plane had crashed into the ocean and that everyone aboard had likely been killed instantly, including the entire team that TVN had sent and some of the network's most prominent presenters. The news sent shockwaves across the entire country and especially the TVN network, with the on-air team having to report that their close friends and colleagues had tragically passed away. And over the course of the following days, numerous bodies would be found floating near the crash site, along with debris and eventually the craft itself. It was said that the flight had encountered heavy winds upon reaching their destination, leading to 2 failed landing attempts, and while making a large U-turn to try their 3rd landing attempt, the flight would disappear into the water, likely as a result of the craft running out of fuel. The interruption of the television program was and is considered a truly grim moment in the world of television, but the situation only gets more eerie as, upon searching the wreckage, divers would discover that the network's cameraman had been filming minutes before the crash, getting shots of each and every person aboard, all of whom were clueless to the fact that in just a few minutes' time, they would all be dead. It's unexplainably haunting watching a group of people unknowingly experiencing their final moments on this earth. But evidently, this footage wasn't the only morbid discovery. Within one of the camera's SD cards was a curious set of 6 images. Images that at a glance are not directly discernible, but once some effects are applied, start to become a bit more clear. As in the most infamous example, we see what appears to be a plane window, along with a large amount of water covering the lens, with the image being timestamped after the plane had impacted the water.
Oh, crap.
And to make things even stranger, the SD card that was storing these images was allegedly found inside an empty water bottle. And though to my knowledge it has never been proven, these images introduced the idea that at the very least, the cameraman, Romina Irazabel, was alive and even conscious after the crash, and snapped the pictures before placing the SD card in the water bottle in order to save them from corrupting in the salt water, which would also mean that he was alive and trapped aboard the broken vessel as it slowly sank to the bottom of the ocean, drowning with no hope of escaping the wreckage.
Oh,
It's terrifying.
To this day, the broadcast interruption, the footage, and the haunting unexplained final images cultivate into what can only be described as one of the darkest moments in TV history.
It reminds me of
We don't know what has just happened
Black
right
Lagoon,
yeah.
where they find the sunken wreckage, and they start talking about like, oh, like these were all people who were trapped here as the wreckage sunk, and basically knew ahead of time like they were screwed.
Well, it's like the
And
sinking
it's
of the
like,
Kursk.
he started to freak out, and he's like, how do you deal with knowing about that? And she's like, you don't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Like, pretty much.
Well, Revi's always like very much just straightforward in the moment. Don't overthink it. And I'll say this: the sinking of the Kursk is another example of something like that, because the Kursk was basically said to be the impregnable submarine. Basically, no torpedo was strong enough to penetrate its armor. That didn't stop a mishandling of ammunition inside, causing one of the torpedoes inside of the Kursk to go off. And it basically caused the Kursk to basically blow up inside, and basically the front half of the ship was dead. And that included like all propulsion and everything, and the ship just going straight down to the bottom and very slowly flooding. And they tried to seal all the bulkheads, but it wasn't enough. And there was someone who wrote a letter and stored it away as he was drowning.
Didn't
Wow.
Mr. Ballin do a video of that?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw that one with you.
All across my channel is endless proof that the internet can be a dark, unforgiving
Nick.
place. And unfortunately, it's become
that
far
Nick,
too easy
not
for
you,
data
Nick,
brokers
right?
to find our personal information. Like
Too
our
many damn
phone
Nicks.
Wait a
numbers,
minute.
personal emails, home addresses,
Too many
and
Nicks.
even our relatives. And if you don't believe me, try Googling yourself, and you'll probably see all sorts of information that you likely had no idea was just out there in the open. And
You know, one time I had a hacker online tell me my physical home address. I just sat there in silence, and I said, "Dude, I already know that." That's a joke, by the way. No one has ever like told me my physical address over like a game or anything like that. But I did hear someone say that one time, and I thought it was funny, so I thought I'd try and make the joke.
As someone like
me out.
myself
I'm
who's been negatively
sorry.
affected by the availability of this information, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to once again be sponsored by Aura, a company dedicated to helping our private information stay private. Aura uses their advanced technology to identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submitting opt-out requests on your behalf, which extends to junk mail and of course everyone's least favorite, telemarketing lists. On top of this, Aura monitors your emails and passwords to assure your information hasn't been involved in any sort of data breaches, even going as far as to search the dark web to see if any of your information may have ended up there. This way you can change your
That's
passwords
creepy.
to better protect yourself from hackers, as well as taking a series of other steps to help reclaim your information. So if this sounds like something that might be interesting to you, you can either keep letting people profit and exploit your private information, or you can go to aura.com/Nick Crowley to start your free 2-week trial.
Boo.
They're probably just going to
Now
let
he's
this
going
thing
into a parking
play
lot. Now
out.
he's stopped. We'll
Yeah,
see what
he can't
happens
go
here.
much
He
further.
has stopped. This may be the end of this
Oh
thing.
no. Is this?
We have one helicopter that is no more than 300 to 200 feet above
O.J.
this
Simpson.
white Bronco that O.J. Simpson is in at this time.
There's something inherently
I remember seeing
captivating
that on
about watching a
TV.
live police chase or standoff. Perhaps it's the danger of it all, the feeling that at any moment, anything can happen, as you sit there watching it all unfold with no way of knowing how it'll end. Now, some of these turn out to have comedic finales, going on to gain notoriety for just how outrageous they are.
This is like a comfortable stroll that this guy's just taken through the neighborhood.
Somebody, making the decision said, just let this guy go.
He's
While
walking
others
along like,
can
I
prove
always feel like somebody watching me.
Disaster.
Very unluckily, not a lot of people see just missing
Whoa.
those cars into that power line there. Wow.
Damn, dog. Also, who's the announcer on this? It sounds like H2O Delirious.
Luckily, not a lot of people see just missing those cars into that power line there.
I'm sorry. That's just what I heard.
A little bit.
Only thing that's missing is like, oh my gosh, all the subscribers.
Wow, that is quite the ending to this pursuit.
And throughout the history of televised police chases and police standoffs, certain moments have left viewers shocked and traumatized by their abruptly disturbing endings. With one of the most recognized
Hence the
examples
top
coming
20
from all the
most
way back
shocking
in
show.
1998,
Yes.
in the world's capital for this type of content.
This is Today in LA, first edition, with Carla Arago.
It happened on
Today in
April
LA.
30th at approximately 3 p.m. when residents in LA had their evening programming interrupted by breaking news. A standoff of sorts had been developing on the Harbor Freeway, one in which numerous stations, even those showing children's cartoons, would cut to. And glued to their screens, adults and children alike would watch as 40-year-old Daniel V. Jones
No, God, why? Oh, do you really gotta show this, man?
would exit his vehicle and display a homemade banner that read, "HMOs are in it for the money, live free, love safe, or die," which was neatly placed on the ground as if he knew helicopters would be arriving to capture this unfolding dilemma. Daniel had been sick with cancer for some time and had just recently been diagnosed with HIV, something that he only blamed himself for. However, these illnesses led to a growing disdain for HMOs, or health maintenance organizations, and he would express his displeasure for them in a phone call to 911 at the very beginning of the incident. During the call, he relayed how he believed the organizations valued profits over the lives of him and countless others, and he wanted to expose them and all their harmful practices in front of the entire world. And now, he had his audience. So, with the whole world watching, Daniel entered his truck with his dog Gladys, lit a Molotov cocktail, and ignited a fire inside the vehicle, all while the broadcast stayed riveted on him. The scene was absolutely brutal, but it got even worse as he eventually exited the car, still on fire and now badly burned. And despite knowing that Daniel clearly had the intention of ending his life, the cameras just kept on rolling. And they continued to roll even as he brandished a shotgun, and followed through on his ultimate desire, as his life came to a gruesome end.
Did the dog die too?
Yes.
Oh.
Look, if you want to take yourself out, dude, that's one thing. Leave your animal with like a family member, or someone you trust, or at a shelter. It's better than condemning it to an early grave.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing. Like, I applaud the man on the front of like exposing insurance companies for the bullshit that they pull, but I don't approve of his method of, taking his animal with him. That to me is just no. I don't approve of that.
Mm-mm.
I remember seeing this whole event. I watched it out of sheer curiosity because I heard about police standoffs and everything. And then I remembered I was on HBO. They were showing like ones that went really far. this was one of them, and
all the while,
I just couldn't
thousands of
believe.
children at home who were just trying to see their favorite cartoons watched on. The incident became a PR nightmare for the multiple stations that were live on the scene and seriously called into question the morality of broadcasting incidents of this nature. But it seems that the ratings they received were just too good to ever stray away from the practice. In fact, if anything, this incident probably boosted their intrigue, as it was the ultimate example that anything can happen on live TV. And yes, despite the tragic result and its human toll, this incident ultimately gave rise to even more broadcasts of this nature that are still to this day a commonplace, with one in particular leaving a lasting impact on myself for nearly a decade now. It started the same as any other live police chase, with multiple stations interrupting their broadcast with that classic flashing breaking news text. It was the 27th of July, 2007 in Phoenix, Arizona, where we're thrust into the action of a high-speed chase occurring at roughly 12:30 p.m. According to the broadcast, this white pickup truck had crashed into a police cruiser upon being pulled over and took off for unknown reasons, prompting not only a hefty response by local police, but local news stations as well, as after only a few minutes, news helicopters were already in the sky, streaming the whole situation out to the world. At some point in this chase, police were able to use a spike strip and seemingly shred all the tires from the man's truck, prompting him to slow down drastically and eventually bring his car to a complete stop.
And it looks like they're probably just going to let this thing play out. Yeah, he can't go much further.
Stop. This may be the end of this thing.
This led to the cameras in the sky scrambling to get that perfect shot, as the dramatic finale of this chase was growing ever so close, though no one could have imagined the tragic end that this was all headed for.
Well, he's taking off, running.
Okay, now it's a foot chase.
Okay, now he's jumped into
now he's in another vehicle. Okay.
All right, they're closing in. Looks like they've.
Whoa,
We're gonna pull out. We don't know what has just happened right there.
I remember that.
Looks like the police have closed in on him. We don't know what exactly has transpired between the police.
As the camera is fixed in on the action, we see a brief moment of static before the broadcast cuts back to the studio, followed by a hurried commercial break as confusion seems to fill the set, leaving the audience baffled at how they could pull away from the footage at such a tense, important moment, causing many to change the channel in a hurry to see just how this thing would end, which is where many would be faced with the reality of what exactly they had just witnessed.
India Ben, he commandeered another car.
Wait. I got a problem here.
Okay.
I got an accident. Go north. I got a helicopter down.
Oh, no. Connie is telling us she has a helicopter down. Oh, no, Connie. This is unbelievable. All right, well, we're going to leave that pursuit and find out. Oh, this is miserable. This is unbelievable. Connie, can you tell us, are you getting chat, or you would know more than us right now?
At this moment, while KNVX-TV's helicopter, piloted by Craig Smith, along with cameraman Rick Krolak, was capturing the action, a separate helicopter piloted by Scott Bowerbank and cameraman Jim Cox from the KTVK station had been unknowingly heading directly towards them, and with all four men blinded by their obligation.
No, it was basically just two of them just collided in the air, and then just a heaping mess because of the rotors. Just
capture this chase in real time. The two aircrafts would unexpectedly collide, leading to the free fall of both helicopters and the deaths of all four aboard. The footage was captured by both parties involved and shown live to who knows how many people, with both providing equally chilling moments, like in the original KNVX-TV broadcast, where you can hear the faint yelling of one of the men on board.
We don't know what has just happened right there. It looks like the police.
And in the KTVK helicopter, when Jim Cox says the line,
Now he's hitting eastbound, and he just hit some more barricades. Absolutely unbelievable. This guy doesn't care what he hits.
when in reality, the very craft he was in was mere moments away from barreling straight into the other news chopper. The entire scene is certainly one of the darkest police chases ever recorded, and to me what makes it all the more gut-wrenching is seeing the other news stations swarm to cover the crash, with many of those people forced to cover the incident being acquaintances and even good friends with the people they had just watched perish, leading to some genuinely heartbreaking reactions.
Holy crap! Oh no! Oh Jesus! Oh God! Oh my gosh! Hey, oh my God! Channel 15 and Channel 3 just had a mid-air collision. Just watch that whole thing. I'm good. I'm off your nose. I'll get back with you. I think it was Scott.
Damn, he's...
Well, he just lost one
really
of his friends.
Distressed.
He just lost one of his friends. I mean...
There's one thing I would request is please leave my family alone.
Big Phil, where have I heard that name before?
Yeah, it seems like they should have
Really
some kind
18
of safety measures in place to prevent stuff like that from happening.
Unbelievably, basically, they're supposed to have like transponders to like let you know like where, like if you are within a certain vicinity now, but back then that didn't exist.
It seems like they should have at least had a third person in the helicopter specifically to keep a lookout on the sky for other helicopters.
I agree.
So that they could warn the pilot, hey, we're getting close to blah from Channel Blah or whatever, you know.
Agreed.
It's like adjust altitude or whatever.
Years ago now, a strange phenomenon hit British tabloids as the papers began to report on a seemingly mundane man named Mick Philpott. As far as I could tell, he never seemed to go out of his way to acquire this fame, but rather the lifestyle he lived caused it to occur organically, and for all the wrong reasons. The then nearly 50-year-old man had recently become a father of 15, with the children split up between 5 different women, 2 of which he took turns living with in a sort of love triangle situation. And if the living arrangements and the sheer number of kids wasn't intriguing enough, he further gained infamy thanks in large part due to his attitude on working, as he refused to get a job and instead would allegedly scheme his way into getting exponential amounts of government benefits. And he did so all the while his pregnant wife and his pregnant girlfriend carried out full-time jobs. It's easy to find their living arrangements strange and maybe even a bit comical, but behind it all was actually a very legitimate dark side, as Mick had a habit of finding young vulnerable girls to essentially groom and impregnate. His now wife Marie was just 18 years old at the time they began dating, and she was one of the older ones, as when he was 37, he struck up a relationship with a 14-year-old girl, who eventually ran away with him at the age of 16. And this dark side of his gets worse when it's revealed that he was also a notorious domestic abuser, slapping and violently beating his past partners on numerous occasions, including one instance when he stabbed his ex-girlfriend 12 times, before then turning the knife on her mother, who attempted to step in and help. His reason for doing this? Well, he didn't like that she spent so much time watching over a baby she was caring for. Thankfully, despite the traumatic injuries, the mother and daughter would survive the attack and go on to live normal lives. And because of this assault, Mick would receive the staggering prison sentence of 7 years. And by the 80s, he was a free man, continuing his nefarious activities all the while. For lack of a better word, Mick was a menace, who somehow was not only a free man after all the crimes he committed, but was also having his entire life funded by the very government that should have locked him away for so much longer. And with his name now in the press, mainly for his number of children, he would use his platform to complain that the benefits he received weren't enough, and that he wanted even more. This caused an even bigger stir in the tabloids, and it was only a matter of time before someone called him up to appear on TV, with Mick and his 2 lovers eventually being invited onto the Jeremy Kyle show, where Mick's temper would be put on full display.
You had a go at me. I said your kids, when they came here today, were well behaved and well mannered and well groomed. No newspaper said that, so you should be apologising to me, because I hadn't even started on you.
Listen, you want to start?
You start! You start! If I can! If I can! Are you sure? I did nothing.
Eventually, Mick would settle down, and his wife Marie and girlfriend Lisa Willis were brought out to discuss their relationship further, to which the 2 surprisingly seemed very content, not backing down from their stance that there was nothing wrong with their feelings towards Mick.
Do you not get slightly peeved that she is Mrs. Mick and you're Mistress Mick?
No.
I'm being serious.
No, I don't. You don't bother me one bit.
ending the program off on a surprising note for the host, who likely expected some sort of reaction from the pair, even getting frustrated to the point where he would lambast the girls for their laissez-faire attitude.
Where is your dignity? You're 22. Don't you want a bloke to yourself? He just said, I agree with you. When you grew up, did you think you were going to share your bloke with another woman?
I didn't actually know. But 2 mums is better for all the kids.
Or confusing?
No.
And as the show came to an end, so too did Mick's 15 minutes of fame, as the paper slowly began to find their next target, and the world continued on with Mick, his 15 kids, and multiple lovers out of mind. Until the year 2012, when his name would pop up once again for a much different reason.
Yeah, we've got the police on the way. Have you any idea what's caused the fire? I've no idea, but it's woke up, I didn't know. There's smoke everywhere.
On May 12, 2012, Mick's home would catch on fire in the dead of night, while he, his wife Marie, and their many children were sleeping peacefully. In the panic, the couple managed to escape with some of their kids, but tragically, 6 of them, all of whom were below the age of 10, would pass away in the blaze, having been stuck upstairs and inaccessible to any form of rescue. By the 16th of May, the story had reached far and wide of the tragedy that unfolded, with Mick and Marie garnering widespread community support. Locals in the area would even band together and raise the money for the children's funeral, prompting the emotional pair to give a heartfelt thank you through the media.
I've actually been down to our home, and what we saw, we just cannot believe it. To see this community to come together like they have, it's just too overwhelming. But there's one thing I would request is please leave my family alone. If you've got any questions or anything at all, please don't come through me or my family. Please go to the police.
And for many, this would have likely been the last they'd ever hear of this broken family, had it not been for a single discovery found within the home's debris. While sifting through the burnt remains of the house, police would discover gasoline in the mailbox, which when found at crime scenes is typically associated with arson, and coincidentally, the very morning of the fire, Mick just so happened to have a court hearing to obtain custody over he and Lisa Willis's children, the second woman who had appeared with Mick on the Jeremy Kyle show. Given that the general public had immediately stopped caring about this family after their appearance on TV, not many knew that Mick and Lisa had actually split up in the following years and were in the midst of a bitter custody dispute, leading to speculation that Lisa may have intentionally set Mick's home on fire as some sort of vindictive act. Or at least, that's what Mick wanted us to believe.
What did you say? Tell me what you said to me. What did you say about me trying to get in?
You tried everything you could to get in. I said to him I wanted to run through the flames, up the stairs.
What did you cry when you were saying it? How bad?
Not really, really bad, but I did cry.
That's hysterical.
There's a fingerprint on the window.
That's it.
A few discrepancies. That's all it is.
It's my fault that half the family's gone. It's my fault we lost our children.
Upon doing an in-depth investigation, which included bugging a hotel room that Mick and Marie were staying in, police would eventually capture a verbal confession that proved the married couple had actually been the ones to initially set the fire, along with their friend Paul Mosley. But why?
Jesus Christ, man. Why? Why? What? You really care that much about, like, fame that you're willing to sacrifice
your kids?
6 of your kids. All of them younger than 10 years old. You undescribably glib bastard.
Well, their goal wasn't actually to kill the children. It was instead to save them. In reality, they had planned on setting the fire in a way that Mick and Mareed could swoop in at the last minute and save all the kids, as a way of making them appear as heroes, before going on to pin the fire on Lisa, and in turn having her arrested while they obtained custody of her children. It was an evil plan that was made so much worse when the fire spread too quickly, making the rescue of the children upstairs almost immediately impossible. And in his desperate attempt to gain even more children under his roof, Mick ended up killing 6 of his very own. It's particularly chilling watching the 3 of these people sitting in unison on that fateful program, none of whom knowing just how bitter things would turn, and how 2 of them would eventually become murderers, all in an attempt to frame the other. It's unspeakably dark. And thankfully this time, Mick Philpott will be kept in prison till the day he dies. Exactly where he belongs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Good.
Also, a little tiny discrepancy.
That's freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So it's a little tiny discrepancy. In the UK, it's not 911, it's 999. And at the top it said 911 audio from Mick Philpott. I was like, only little discrepancy there. That's just me though.
There are a lot of accusations and allegations about what's happening.
I am going to do something that is unthinkable.
Our next case is by far the most requested topic that I have ever received on this channel, as it seems to strike a chord with so many who watched the situation unfold live. It all started on the evening of June 25th, 2007, the night in which the WWE had been preparing to air a live 3-hour program known as
exactly
Raw.
what this is.
I don't know. So can we?
I'll just say this: I watched this happen, and I still can't believe everything. I still can't.
The event was set to feature their usual star-studded list of wrestlers going head-to-head in Corpus Christi, Texas. Though the morning of, out of the group of those star wrestlers, one man was missing: Chris Benoit. According to fellow wrestler Chavo Guerrero, he had received a voicemail from Benoit 2 days prior, where he was told that Benoit's wife Nancy and son Daniel had come down with food poisoning, before telling another co-worker the following day that Nancy was so sick that she had been vomiting blood. Guerrero would go on to state that the following morning he received vague text from Benoit, with some simply stating his address and another giving directions to where the dogs were being kept, and how the side door to the house was left unlocked. Texts that were sent around 3 a.m. and ignored by Guerrero, as he knew he would be seeing Benoit in just a few hours, given that he was going to be picking him up at the airport in preparation for the show. Though he would never hear from Benoit again.
Good evening. In reality, WWE superstar Chris Benoit, his wife Nancy, and their son Daniel are dead.
With the program growing nearer on the 25th, news would be relayed to the WWE that Chris Benoit, along with Nancy and Daniel, had been found dead within their home. The news came as a shock to the entirely scheduled Raw event. The decision was made to cancel the matches and instead showcase a tribute to the famed wrestler who so suddenly lost his life. And so on the evening of June 25th, 2007, the WWE would reflect on some of Chris Benoit's best moments in the circuit, along with their biggest stars giving personal accounts of just how much Benoit meant to them, with it all happening live and in real time the very night that Chris was found dead. Throughout the program, wrestlers like Stone Cold Steve Austin, John Cena, and CM Punk, who was originally scheduled to fight Benoit that night, shared heartfelt memories of just how good a man Chris Benoit truly was, emphasizing his talent, work ethic, and the love he had for his family.
There was respect. It meant everything to him. Respect for this business, respect for the fans, respect for the wrestlers, respect for his family, respect for himself.
And for a moment, this all seemed to be exactly what the wrestling world needed, to bring everyone together in remembrance. But near the end, a shift seemed to occur following an interview given by William Regal, whose comments towards Benoit felt far more reserved than the others before him, who poured their hearts out over their fallen friend.
At a later date, I'll be quite happy to sit here and...
Oh, come on. Internet. Damn it. 2707. Come on. Work, damn you. Try
switching the server.
Yeah.
Case a tribute to the famed wrestler.
So 2707. There we go.
We're quite happy.
Huh? Oh, right. Thank you.
Him, who poured their hearts out over their fallen friend.
At a later date, I'll be quite happy to sit here and tell you all the things about Chris Benoit that I'd like to tell you. But now all I'm willing to say is that Chris Benoit was undoubtedly the hardest working man in professional wrestling.
According to some watching the program, the interview did feel a bit out of place, and apparently slightly threw off the vibe of the remaining show, as things felt far more stiff and reserved than at its opening. And there was good reason for this. When Regal was preparing to do this live interview, he was allegedly approached by fellow wrestler John Layfield, who pulled him aside and asked, "You think he had anything to do with it?" Initially, the thought had never even crossed his mind. In fact, he had a heartfelt message fully prepared to read in the moments leading to his interview. But something about that question made him pause, leading to his subsequent words being rather short and cautious, as the hesitation led to the creeping thought of, what if he really did have something to do with it? A thought that very few at the time had even considered, which looking back seems so surreal. As for those familiar with the case, you know exactly where this is headed.
We're now looking at this case and ruling it as a double homicide suicide. Evidence in the home leads us to believe that Mr. Benoit had murdered his wife by asphyxiation. Sometime shortly after that, the same for his son Daniel.
Oh my God.
Over the previous days before Chris's tribute was aired, he would be the one to take the lives of his wife, son, and eventually himself. Benoit did so by drugging and strangling his son and wife, while leaving Bibles by their side, seemingly as a result of some type of mental breakdown. To this day, an exact motive is still not fully understood, but it likely had to do with a combination of multiple factors, with the most glaring being the head trauma that Benoit had suffered as a result of his profession. As following his death, Benoit's brain was studied by a neurologist who would go on to state that Benoit's brain was so severely damaged, it resembled the brain of an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient.
Yeah. CT. It's not just a boogeyman, it's real. And this was one of the cases that brought that to light.
The gruesome scene uncovered at the family home by the hands of Chris Benoit makes this whole memorial program for him just seem so much more chilling.
Yeah.
As not even 24 hours later, the man that was being so highly praised as a loving family man would be revealed to have been the one behind his own family's murder. And as disturbing as this all is, there's plenty of other chilling moments left behind by Benoit, with perhaps none more eerie than the promo he shot for another Raw event just a few years before his death.
My wife and my children will not be watching because I am going to do something that is unthinkable. I'm going to leave you with my anger. Sleep well.
What the actual fuck?
So there were several things that led to, I'll end cap them really quickly. Eddie Guerrero was another wrestler, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Him and Chris Benoit were best friends. 18 months before Chris Benoit died, Eddie died. And Chris never sought counseling after Eddie passed away. Not only that,
Wait, who did they say was supposed to pick him up from the airport?
Chavo. That's Eddie's nephew.
Okay.
But, yeah, so basically, that was one big factor. Like, because Eddie was the only person that could get Chris to open up and talk about things. And unfortunately, when Eddie died...
How did Eddie die?
Heart attack. He was only 38.
Did he die before that promo that they showed at the end there?
No. And then, of course...
That promo is like bone chilling.
Yes, it is.
It's like a premonition or something. Like a... I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it leads you to believe he'd been
Thinking
plotting
about
doing it for a long time.
Well, here's the other thing that they didn't mention. Chris had another son, David. And David was super close. Like, David was from his first marriage. And David was super close with Nancy, with his little brother, and with Chris. All three of them. Like, went to stay with them all the time.
Yeah.
And when he heard, he couldn't believe it. He didn't want to believe it. And I'll never forget when I saw the Dark Side of the Ring episode. He said, "What was the last memory you have with your family?" It's like, and basically he just recalled him and his brother, started out the day, just watched wrestling matches that their dad was in. Then they went to Chuck E. Cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came back, and him and his brother went walking in the forest. And him and his brother, held close to him, and he said, his little brother said, "I love you, David." And that was the last time he ever saw him. He left the next day.
Wow.
And at that point, David just started to break down and just started crying during that Dark Side of the Ring episode. Also, Chris Benoit was dedicated to wrestling so much, he punished himself for any mistake. And if you would have told him that what he was going to do was going to permanently blackball him from ever being mentioned in a positive light ever again, he wouldn't have believed it. Crazy shit. Crazy, crazy shit. Anyway, sorry.
July 7th, 2012.
Si dicen la verdad hasta el final, podrían ganar 50,000 soles.
Television host Beto Ortiz opens up the very first episode of a brand new TV show called El Valor de la Verdad, or The Value of Truth. Throughout its airtime, the show would challenge contestants to answer a series of questions honestly, while strapped to a polygraph test. The test then monitors if the person is telling the truth or not, and with each correct answer, you earn more and more money, until you either choose not to answer a question, or until you're caught lying. Though there was a catch. The questions would get increasingly more difficult and embarrassing, and all the while you're answering them, you're seated directly next to your loved ones, with whom the questions were often based around. The whole program is incredibly cringe-inducing, but in a way that you can't quite take your eyes off. And in Peru, The Value of Truth was poised to become a breakout hit, thanks in large part to the success of this very first episode. In it, we're introduced to the contestant Ruth Thalia Sea Sanchez, a 19-year-old call center employee hoping to gain fame from the show, while being accompanied by her parents and boyfriend Brian Romero Lavea, and they could not have selected a better inaugural participant. Up until this point, Ruth had lived her life in a state of poverty, and the type of money offered by the program would be life-changing for both herself and her family, which might explain her openness on air, as throughout the entire program, Ruth answers each and every question with painful honesty. In one moment, she admits that she wishes that she were white, and in another, she stated how she was often embarrassed by her parents' manners, which she says as they sat directly across from her. can feel the tension as each answer seems to drive a dagger into her parents' hearts, eventually leaving her mother in tears. And it only gets more painful from here as she was asked, "Are you with your crush until someone better arrives?" To which she says, yes, with her boyfriend watching on just feet away.
Ouch.
And following this, the questions would become more and more intrusive, with Ruth eventually having to admit that in order to pay her bills, she worked at a nightclub as a stripper, which was news to all of her loved ones who sat there stunned by the revelation, especially her boyfriend Brian. A revelation that leads us to Ruth's final question and the most painful one of all. Have you ever accepted money in exchange for sex? A question which she would answer yes, before promptly ending her time on the show 3 questions away from the finale.
Me retiro.
Se retira.
Me retiro.
The whole ordeal left everyone, including the audience, completely stunned. On one hand, many applauded Ruth for being so honest, and on the other, she was criticized for putting her family, and her boyfriend specifically, through this embarrassing line of questions, broadcast for the whole country to see.
Yeah, boyfriend should have stood up and walked out when she answered that one.
Yeah, I agree.
About the crush
so
thing.
popular
like,
that the station
would have saved himself hearing she was also a stripper and a prostitute.
supposedly aired it each weekend for a staggering 12 weeks straight. The show and Ruth herself became instant phenomenons, and in a sense, this did bring Ruth some of the fame that she so desperately desired, making appearances on multiple news programs in the following weeks, and becoming a legitimate household name in Peru. And the finances helped her situation too, as she walked away with 15,000 sols, or about $5,800 back then. And for a moment, it seemed as if the pain of releasing all this private information might have actually been worth it. Until the day she vanished. Out of nowhere, Ruth suddenly went radio silent, missing appointments and failing to answer her phone while her home sat vacant. For 10 days straight, there was no sign of the young star, prompting a massive search of the area she lived in, with those same loved ones that had accompanied her on the Value of Truth helping lead the search efforts, until eventually, police would happen across her lifeless body, buried in a shallow grave. She had died of asphyxiation, a clear-cut case of murder, and there was only ever one suspect. Just before Ruth had vanished, she would make an appearance on TV in which she appeared lower energy than normal, expressing her sadness in the fact that her and her boyfriend Brian had broken up, likely as a result of the embarrassment brought about by the show. And with this in mind, Brian had been questioned about his role in her disappearance, and eventually admit to everything. Angered by the embarrassment that Ruth had caused him in front of the entire nation, and feeling as if he was owed a certain percentage of the money that Ruth had earned, Brian would visit Ruth's home and drug her with sleeping pills before proceeding to assault her and eventually hang her. He would then bury her body in the hopes that she would never be found. Years later, Brian would be found guilty of Ruth's murder and receive the punishment of life in prison. Despite its very first episode leading to a prolific murder case, The Value of Truth remained a hit show for years to follow, until it would eventually fizzle out and be taken off the air, leaving in its wake a multitude of embarrassing memories, and one of the darkest moments in TV history.
Sheesh.
She should have just got up and walked out and cut fucking ties whenever she said that she was only with him until somebody better came along, and left it at that, dude.
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Clearly a lot.
Crazy.
You ain't kidding. Holy
See what
shit.
we mean by these videos put you in a weird fucking mood, though?
Yep.
That's Nick Crowley for you, though. So, yeah.
That's why I told Nate, like, whenever we first reacted to one of these, I was like, we can't do these very often.
No.
It's like,
Which is why I'm
not going to be
spacing them
good for my
out.
mental health if we do these really often.
Which is why I'm spacing them out more and more. So, all right.
I gotta have a lot of happy stuff between these.
Yeah. Well,
Nick does a bang up job on his editing and his storytelling. But goddamn, the stories are depressing.
Yeah, true that. Anyway, I don't know what else to say other than just wow. Wow.
I think the worst one though was the wrestling one. That one and the helicopter.
Yeah, Chris Benoit, that one.
It's especially tragic when you think about just how revered of a person he was.
He was.
Among everyone.
He was one of my favorite wrestlers. That's the thing.
Like, it's one of the only cases I've ever heard of where I'm almost like, I don't actually know. I'm always like, anybody who would kill someone, like murder someone, you know, is a clearly evil person. And in his case, I'm just kind of like, I can't 100% say that he was just an evil person. I think he might have just been like, it might have just been like the brain damage and stuff that just basically caused him to be crazy, essentially.
Well, here's what, from the Dark Side of the Ring, the most revealing thing from that was Sandra, Nancy's older sister, Nancy Benoit, her older sister, basically, she said she knew Chris as this loving, gentle person who she never could have imagined could do something like that to not just her sister, but also her nephew, who she loved so much.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that she said was that I have spent the last 15 years of my life hating him. I have spent 15 years hating him and thinking about all of the bad things that he did to my sister before she died. And I've got to be honest, it hasn't got me anywhere. She said, I will be willing to forgive him one day, but not today. But the greater part of me does want to forgive him because I know who he truly was, and the monster that took my sister's life was not the man that I knew. To which, if Sandra is the most affected Sandra and David both are the most affected people from this.
Mm-hmm.
And Sandra is willing to forgive eventually. And David still reveres his dad as a wrestler. He hates how everything gosh.
I mean, how could you not? Yeah. Like, hate how everything ended, obviously.
This right here, this is from Dark Side of the Ring. Don't know if I'll be able to show all
this
of this.
Is my favorite page because this was during
That's
Chris and
Eddie's
Nancy's wedding, and Daniel was the best man, of course. This is the love that Chris and Nancy always had. And then here's them feeding Daniel after they got married. And Nancy being the princess that she was. And David was there too, Chris's oldest.
David is the son of Chris Benoit from Chris's first marriage.
Hi guys. Nancy, she treated me like I was her own kid. We didn't use the word step in our family, you know.
Looks like his dad.
We were family. We went and had
like
fun.
A spitting
Went to Chuck E.
image of his
Cheese
dad.
with Daniel and Nancy, and you know, it was good times.
This is my very favorite photo of
That's Sandra.
David and Daniel.
That's Nancy's older sister.
It's flippin' adorable. I mean, that's what siblings are. You hang on to one another and hope for the best for each other.
He looked up to me, you know. I loved him. I protected him. We wanted to be tag team champions. That's what we wanted to do. Be the tag team champions of the world together.
That sucks.
Sorry, that got to me. I've seen that documentary from beginning to end, like both parts, and it still hits like a ton of bricks every time. Especially considering how long I followed Chris Benoit from the first time I saw him in WCW back in like 1996. all the way until this. And to see the effect that it all had on his family, especially his son. I mean, imagine everyone saying all that awful stuff about your dad and you just having to take it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's going to do it, everybody. That's our time limit. And yeah, we did need the full hour. Oh, boy. So, that's going to do it. This was Nick Crowley with the darkest moments in TV history, part 3. If y'all enjoyed and you want to see more from Nick Crowley, click his name in the title of the video. And until next time, I'm Nate.
I'm Kate.
I am Nick.
Y'all be good people. Take care.